I've got a quick question for you, alright? I wanna hear your thoughts, I wanna know what's on your mind. I've got a quick question for you, alright? The answer's not important, I'm just glad that we could talk tonight. So what's your favourite? How did you get? When will I be remembered? Was it ever? Where did all go? Why do we know? Oh, forget it. Soren, Bowie, Daniel O'Brien, two best friends and comedy writers. If there's an answer, they're gonna find it. I think you'll have a great time here. I think you'll have a great time here.
So, hello again and welcome to another episode of Quick Question with Soren and Daniel, the podcast where two best friends and comedy writers ask each other questions and give each other answers. I am one half of that podcast, senior writer for Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, author of How to Fight Presidents and Vacation Boy. Daniel O'Brien, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Soren Bowie. Soren, say aloha.
Aloha, mahalo, fellow travelers in this world. I'm Soren Bowie. I'm a writer for American Dad. But that's not really my real title. I'm a wanderer, a traveler, you might say.
Oh, boy.
You'll notice that I've traveled to a new room, Daniel. So, two things. First of all, visually...
I will not notice that.
Oh, you didn't notice. Visually, if you're not watching this podcast, fucking get on it, baby, because we're going to be talking about that kind of stuff a lot. Like, Daniel is clearly a traveler. He's got on a cool new flowery hat. He's got a sunburn on his nose. And I am in a brand new room, and that's fucking all we're going to talk about today.
I know.
Wait, okay.
I forget which comedian. I want to say it was Kyle Kinane, but it's just a line that stuck with me for forever. Where I was doing a stand-up, and he was also on the show, and he had just gotten back from a trip and was very sunburned. And he said, if you want to find the stupidest person in any room, look for a sunburned adult. And it's such a good point, and it's very, like, sunburn is a really easy thing to avoid as an adult. You cannot be outside, or if you're going to be outside and you know you're going to be outside, you can bring and wear
There's
sunscreen.
Solutions for that, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm on vacation work because I'm on hiatus from work this week, and I've just been enjoying truly just baking in the sun. And I went fishing on Tuesday, and there's no shade on a boat. We're just out there in the water, and you're getting blasted with rays from the water as well. And I thought I was so fucking clever wearing a hat and sunglasses and even like a UV shirt, like a long-sleeved UV shirt for protection, but just nothing on the old face. And I'm just like blasted. And I appreciate how humiliating sunburns are. It's the swastika they carve into the Nazi heads in Inglourious Bastards. I'm not allowed to walk around and not broadcast my stupidity.
Yeah.
Which was the Nazis too. That was their main thing. They were so stupid. That's
Brad Pitt's big concern was they were dummies. Yeah, he was like, just didn't have the intelligence. No, you can't.
You're gonna forget you're a Nazi if I don't remind you.
No, you have what I would call the raccoon tan, which is eyes are white still, rest of the face is a different color. That's
absolutely
pretty. That's like that was the goggle tan we would all get as kids for the same reason. Where like you're up on the mountain, you're getting hit from every direction. Like you're getting bukkakied by the sun because it's coming from the ground and it's coming from the air, reflecting off the snow. But I will say that as an adult, yes, it's a little humiliating to have a sunburn. You have to, it only happens through stupidity. We're at a time like 2023 where you see a child with a bad sunburn. Like that also reflects really poorly on the parents. You don't see that anymore. You don't see kids with really bad sunburns.
I'm curious about a couple of things. I'd like to know what year you think it is.
2024.
Yes, that time you got it. You did say we're at a time 2023.
Oh, fuck. That's I'm just gonna start using 2023 as like the time when everything changed and we should all be good now. So I'm like, it's past 2023. What are we doing? Women can be doctors, etc.
truly forget what year it is all the time, and I forget what time of year it is. I'm glad it's getting warmer, so that clues me in pretty good. But if I'm not in a Target for a while, I have no idea what time of year it is. Target is really crucial. Be like, hey, it's Mother's Day. I'm like, thank you so fucking much. Yeah. I thought it was Christmas. This is really helpful. Thank you, Target, for your card displays, letting me know where I can orient myself within the year. And just seeing like back to school savings, I'm like, damn, summer's over. And this was the only way I was ever going to find out because I don't write checks anymore.
You're right. Target will help you. Target can be your calendar. Don't rely on Home Depot to be your calendar. Anybody. Because I've gone in there to try and get Halloween decorations in September, thinking like, you know what? I could use a couple more skeletons for the old casa. And tried to go in there, and they're like, no, we don't fucking do those anymore. It's Christmas. It's Christmas. And like by the end of September, there's no chance you're getting Halloween decorations. They've already set up everything for Christmas, and there might be
it's Christmas then,
a dog skeleton somebody forgot about that like you could still purchase if you wanted to. But other than that, it's like the Home Depot is so far in advance. Like they're so far out on stuff that you're like, oh, this is not helpful to me.
You also, I'm doubling back or going back a little bit because you mentioned sunscreen on children, and this was something that is in like my long gestating notes doc of stand-up material. Okay. Even though I don't do stand-up and I have no intention of going back to it.
I still keep it.
I still like putting notes every once in a while. And I was an idea that I was circling that I never actually figured out how it could crystallize into a joke. I think the notes just said, have you ever seen an adult put sunscreen on a child? It is one of the most violent things I've ever seen. But I don't know what to do with that. But it's truly like they're like pulling on their child because the kid doesn't understand and doesn't want it, and like child, like 5,
Baby.
where you can't really explain, and they want to go and play in the pool or play in the sand, and just watching the adult who's just hold still and really slathering it on this kid who is fighting every step of the way. They don't want this thing, and the parents just like, if you just do this one bit of preparation, then you're fine for the rest of the day. You just need to sit still for a second, and then it'll be done, and it'll be over with if you stood still, perfectly still the whole time. And I'm doing this to protect you, you little shit. It's such a battle. It's so fun for me to watch.
I'll say, even the kids that are like sitting still, parents are still like slapping the face and like turning the whole head when they're like trying to get it on their face because they're trying to rub it in. Like they're trying to do a good job.
It's really tense.
And they're doing a lot of it's a lot of yanking and pulling of the face in a way that's like, whoa, you're not allowed to get away with that any other time. Now, I said, if I saw a child with sunburn, I would be like, oh, that parent fucked up. And you don't really see like kids with a really bad sunburn. We get that shit all the time when we were young. But now everyone knows better. Everybody knows that you just shaved off like 10 years of that kid's life. But I feel like I got like parents were great, but I was just reckless and lawless, and I would just come home covered in dirt and sunburns, missing a shoe, and they'd be like, "Where were you?" I was like, "I don't know. Where am I now? What the hell?" Yeah, my mom would every summer shave our heads after learning the lesson that we were going to get a bunch of tree sap in our hair every summer.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm not dealing with this shit. I can't stop you from going out there and like getting tree sap. I don't know where you're getting it. But you're getting a lot of it in your hair, and I'm just going to shave your heads.
That's very smart. We would come home and my mom would immediately check all of our hair for ticks. Yeah. Because we were probably somewhere where ticks were going to be. And also, as usual, have no memory where we were. It was like, were you in the woods? Were you in the long bits of grass? Like, I don't know. I walked outside when it was sun, and then the sun went away, so I came home. What's for dinner?
Now it's the new thing. Yeah. I've had my children, like my son, my daughter's never actually gotten sunburn because she's still pretty young, but he is enough of his own person that like he can live in the world without us. And I didn't put sunscreen on him one day recently. And it's not until recently that like the sun has mattered because of where it is in the sky and like how short the days were. But he came home and he had sunburn on his neck, and I was like, this like we can't leave the house for a few days. This is like neglect. This is abuse. If people see this, it's going to be a problem. I can't let other people see that you got sunburn because it reflects so poorly on me as a dad. So we're staying home. We're staying home for the next 3 days till this solves itself.
I had some of the most humiliating sunburn I've ever gotten the weekend that I proposed to my now fiance, because we were down in Florida and we went out on her parents' boat, and it was cartoonish. You could really see that I was wearing a backwards hat and that I had stopped applying sunscreen at the line of the hat, and then at some point had like pushed my hat back farther than where it was. So when I took my hat off, there was like a perfect cartoon line across my forehead, and then a little window where like the hat buckle is open, the exposed part. It wasn't a fitted cap, it was a strap cap, so you could see like the window where I had been clearly wearing a hat. Anyone who looked at me could see wore a hat backwards, fell asleep in the sun, didn't put sunscreen
brutal.
on before the hat, and like
when your sunscreen tells a story, that's tough.
Yeah. And like thank God we didn't do like professional engagement photos that weekend, because it's just such a wash. Every photo of me, even when I'm wearing like a nice shirt and I've got product in my hair, there's still a very clear line across my forehead, as if I'd had like a scalp transplant. It's like a perfect straight line of negligence on my part.
And then you get an extra little semicircle above it for your third eye. That's so brutal, man. We did a sketch of when we used to work at Cracked where I was a stripper. Right. And I had to be in American flag briefs. And before this, I think we shot in like February. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to just tan up for this. If I'm going to have my whole body out there for the internet, I'm going to tan up a little. So it's February, tough to tan in February. And I thought, wow, no sunscreen necessary. Just go sit out in the sun like 11 o'clock in the morning and don't leave the sun for as long as you can. So I had on it was little briefs, not briefs, like boxer briefs. So like there's like a little bit of leg to it as well. And sat out in the sun, just reading and like turning over and just spinning myself like a rotisserie chicken. And eventually came inside and I thought, that ought to do it. Went and took a shower, and in the shower, it became immediately apparent that I had overdone it. And I was like, fuck, I am burned. Like, this is way worse than being pale. I'm burned in a really terrible, obvious way. So, and in
a way that like breaks the reality of the sketch.
It's like now everyone's
kind
like,
of stripper
why is he burnt?
Show up burnt.
The joke is gone.
Is that the joke?
The joke of the sketch is ruined because it's been muddied by this new thing. And so the morning of, Colleen was like really supportive. She was saying, maybe it'll just go away. Like it's only it's like a February burn. Maybe it'll just disappear by tomorrow. And I was like, yeah, maybe. And then the morning of,
maybe this will be the first time that happens.
I had to get up so early for the sketch too. We started shooting at like 6:30, and she got up with me and she was like, I think if we just put some makeup on it, it will be fine. Yeah. And this loving, supportive wife of mine put concealer on my whole chest, like on my body and my back, and then I went and shot the sketch. Now, I didn't know that I was going to be in these briefs. That was thrown on me at the last second on the day. I put on these American flag briefs, and before that, I'd been wearing boxer briefs.
Just irresponsible filmmaking. Just
so
rude.
So now I've got basically thigh highs of sunburn, like picture thigh high boots, but there's just sunburn instead. And then a gap of about 4 inches before the underwear starts. So just this band of pale skin in between. So nothing could be more glaring. Now, if that sketch is up, you could go back and watch it and you could look and you'd be like, oh, fuck yeah, he's really sunburned. Oh, wow, look at his legs. And it's rough, man. It was the worst decision I ever made, and it was like the worst sunburn. They're not like in terms of like blistering sunburn, but the dumbest sunburn I've ever had.
I don't even think you wanted to do that sketch. I think this was very early-ish Cracked time where you were the only thing close to a piece of meat that we had at our disposal.
Yeah.
You were always like a very fit person, and like I think like the shared comedy writer brain is like, he's fit, so that must mean he wants people to look at his body as close to nude as possible. He's fit, so surely he wants to be nearly naked on film forever. That's just like for some reason every comedy writer assumes like
That's
attractive people want to be stared at and objectified because we're all broken and miserable inside.
That was the first time that we shot Agents of Cracked. I had to wear a squib because you shoot me in it, and there's gonna be an explosion in my shirt. But the squib has to be taped to your chest, and there's behind the scenes, like I'm sitting there with a shirt like half over my shoulder, wearing it up. I'm not a part of Cracked yet. I am somebody that you guys borrowed from another company that you needed in a sketch. Michael took a picture of me not wearing a shirt and then just put it up on everything. And he was like, wow, Soren's a piece of man meat. And I was like, oh, hey, okay. Like,
hey, everyone, check out this body.
It would be crazy of me at this point to be like, hey, everybody, please don't look at this and please take it down. Like, that's not, that. If I'm trying to be part of Cracked, I'm not going to do that. So I was just like, you know what? Steer to the skid? Sure. Yep. There it is. And then playing that role for a while. That's been true of, I'll say, not just Cracked. That's true of every job I've had.
Right.
Where they're like, hey man, we got to do this shoot. Will you just pop your shirt off? I'm like, I don't.
Yeah.
No. Bosses just like feel very comfortable being like touching your arms and stuff. And you're like, here's the thing. At a job, please don't ever remind somebody else that they own a body.
Yeah.
That's the safest way you can work.
If you're just joining us, we wanted to issue another correction on the podcast in real time. Soren mistakenly remembers the finale of Agents of Cracked season 1, and he said that I shoot him through the chest. He is actually, I believe, shot by Mandy Manderson.
That's right. Yeah, Mandy shoots
I don't
me
think the Daniel character shoots
anyone
in that show.
Yeah. No, you don't.
So if you're just joining us, Soren thinks it's 2023, and he completely erased the woman in STEM that was Mandy Manderson from Agents of Cracked. Soren, the floor is yours.
You shoot 2 giant machine guns in the intro to that sketch every single time.
Fair.
Okay. Well, that was a fun walk down memory lane. I would have been actually really good. We didn't come in planning that, but it would have been a fun question to say, what was the most embarrassing sunburn you've ever had? And asked and answered.
Did you, before we were recording, you were asking me about my fishing trip. Did you have any specific questions about the fishing trip?
I do. I have a bunch of questions about it.
Go for it. Oh, great.
So you got burned on that trip. Was that near your house, or were you gone somewhere to do your fishing trip?
I took a boat out of marina that's about 10 minutes from home.
All right. Now, you sent us a picture from that trip of you catching I'm going to say, I don't know, shark. You caught a shark.
Sure.
You caught a fish, and you showed it to us. And this fish is, I would say, maybe like 8 inches long.
You are incorrect.
6?
It has to be at least 12 and a half inches to be kept. Yeah.
So that's a big fish. Okay.
Yeah.
You sent us a picture. You sent Gabe and me a picture of your fish. It's a very pretty fish. It's like the silvery fish.
It's a sea bass.
It is
Black
a sea bass. Okay. It's very pretty. It's got some iridescence to it. Now, in the picture that you sent, the fish has an extra little hole in its lip. I can see where your hook is in. Where your hook is going right through the lip, and then just above that, it's got another piercing, like a one that like it got when it was younger, and then decided it didn't want it anymore.
Yeah.
Did somebody else catch this fish before you? Does this happen? First of all, does this happen a lot, where like you're catching fish and you can tell that somebody else has caught this fish, maybe even like 3 or 4 times? Second of all, Do you even know what that hole is?
No, I would guess it had been caught previously, and maybe it was caught and thrown back because it was too small. So like that could be
And then it grew up.
a couple years old or several months old, something like that.
Yeah.
It could also be, I mean, blackfish season didn't officially start until, I want to say May 17th out here. So it's
Don't know what
possible
that
that someone caught him the week before season, and you're not allowed to keep it if it's off season. Yeah, so they might have caught it and been like, oh shit, I can't keep this, and thrown it back. Or they threw it back because it was too small, or they threw it back because they had already hit their limit. They've maxed out on the amount of sea bass they're allowed to take that day and threw it back. Any of these hit reasons for throwing a fish back after you caught it.
So you are, it didn't even occur to me until now that there are fish out there that have probably been caught like 5 or 6 times. Like fish
Correct,
that get
yeah.
caught over and over and never learn their stupid lesson.
Right.
Because
Often
why
in the
would
same
they?
day it could happen. Yeah, because they were like, oh look, a snack. Oh no, my life has changed, and then they get thrown
Yeah.
back in the water.
Everything's
and they're
fine.
Like, man, that was crazy. Oh cool, a snack.
Right. Now you said blackfish season?
Sea bass season.
Oh, but you...
This is
okay, I thought-
a black sea bass.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if there's like, you cycle through different colors of fish that are okay to catch.
Yeah. No, there's different seasons for when you're allowed to catch fish, and there's some and like different rules for different areas. I think in North Carolina, there's like 2 days a year that you are allowed to take home red snapper, and you're only allowed one. That's like the limit. So there's just people who are like fishing all year long, and then they wait for 4th of July weekend or whatever it's going to be, and you're like, I'm going to catch this is my one day to catch the red snapper Pokemon, and if I don't, then I have to wait till next year.
That
And I was on a boat
Yes,
when someone
that makes
caught them and
sense.
it wasn't in season, and they
Had to
took
throw
it
it back.
seriously about like, I can't let anyone, I have to make sure they like revived the fish on the boat before sending it back in the water, because the fishermen are really serious about not breaking the law. And they didn't want to catch or
fish
kill.
CPR? What
Yeah,
had they revived
yeah.
the fish?
I think because it's deep sea fishing, so when you pull it out, it's the same as humans, where like that is too big of a change too quickly for
Okay.
the fish's bladder. So you need to like pump some kind of air in it or something to get it like breathing again and reacclimated to being at just a completely different depth,
Yeah, it gets
until
the
they
bends.
like revive
Okay.
themselves and swim back down there.
That's wild. I've heard of this about red snapper, not necessarily like individual non-market, not commercial fishermen, but that red snapper that within our country, there's way more red snapper on menus than there is like red snapper being caught throughout the year.
Yeah.
77% of all red snapper in even like great restaurants is not actually red snapper. It's this other
Correct.
really dog shit fish that when you eat it, a certain percentage of the population, when they shit after eating it, get these oil droplets in their shit that terrifies everyone. Like red oil rises to the surface and terrifies everyone.
I wish I could remember the name of this garbage fish. I know there was a podcast that talked about it, and they called it X-lax fish because of what it does to your digestive system. But when I had it in Hawaii, no one was putting on airs. That's diarrhea fish. That's what everybody I know in real life called it. And then I heard about it on a podcast called X-lax fish. But it's a kind of
Escalar.
escalar, that's right, thank you. But fish fraud in America, even separate from escalar, is huge because there's lots of incentive to mislabel fish, right? You can sell diarrhea fish at a much higher price if you say it's red snapper or grouper or something like that. And if you're not buying a fish with its like whole body intact, you're not going to know. You're like most people buying fish at a grocery store or a restaurant, they're not going to know the difference between tile fish and pollock or whatever. So one of the incentives for fish fraud is you get more money pretending it's grouper. Another is you can catch a fish that is off season and you don't want to get caught for it, so you skin it and say, "This is grouper. I caught one of the fish I'm supposed to catch." And I thought those are the main like incentives for lying about fish, and also it's because it's such a difficult thing to track, because the food that we're eating in our grocery stores and our restaurants is very often like caught in China and then travels through Russia before it comes to us. Thank you all for listening to my fish fraud podcast. I don't know if Soren knew who is teeing me up for a thing that I think a lot about.
Welcome to Fish Fraud with Soren and Dan.
Yeah, this is a great behind-the-scenes glimpse into what happens to ideas that I pitched to last week tonight that don't get picked up.
Yeah.
They stay in my brain until I could talk about them on the podcast.
I assume that you've also looked a lot into this, which is like the spiritual cousin to it, which is that they renamed a bunch of fish so that people would eat them. Like, once they realized they couldn't get away with fraud, they were catching still a bunch of fish that were like very plentiful, not bad tasting, but just like a real dog shit fish to look at. It's like a Chilean sea bass is a good example. Like, Chilean sea bass was not always called Chilean sea bass. It was like the Patagonian toothfish. And when you see it, the actual fish, you're like, oh, no one should be eating that.
No, thank you.
And they renamed a bunch of them. And they just decided, like, at one point, there was this surge where they're like, and now we'll just rename all these fish to make it more palatable.
Yeah. My first experience with escalar in Hawaii was just going to fish market, and just I wanted to buy and make fresh fish. And I didn't know shit about fuck, so I was like, that one looks good. Can you tell me about this one? What should I cook it with? And they're like, oh, just some garlic and butter, and it's great. And I ate this fish and I cooked it, and it tasted really good. And then I was shitting my brains out, it just so happened that the Airbnb I was staying at had a book about like Hawaii fish. And I was reading up on, as I'm sitting in the toilet, I was reading up about escalar, and they were like, sometimes called diarrhea fish. And I'm like, hey,
I know that one.
It's true.
It's like, I guess it's just a really oily fish.
Yeah.
I don't totally understand how it happens. And it also doesn't affect everyone the same way, apparently. Like, there are just some people that are more prone to getting massive diarrhea from this fish. And so they're like, these restaurants are like, we'll roll the dice on that.
It's very funny. I imagine both of us were thinking about escalar this year because we listened to the same podcast
Search
at the end of last year.
Search engine, yeah.
Search Engine, my favorite podcast. But the host was going to this same sushi restaurant in New York and eating the same thing and getting diarrhea over and over again. So he was like convinced that he was the victim of fish fraud, and he took a sample of the fish and sent it off to get it DNA tested to see if he had been served escalar from the sushi restaurant. And the results were, no, it's not escalar. So this host is just like, he uncovered this whole thing about fish fraud. It made it like a very fascinating episode. It was on a whole lot of like end of year lists for just like an incredible topic, an incredible story. And I'm sure informed a lot of people and changed a lot of lives. Got no closure on his thing. It's just unrelated getting consistent diarrhea from this restaurant. He's
somebody who asks very good questions about the world, but at the world around him. So isn't always aware on whether this is like a universal issue or this is a issue that's happening within a very small radius in New York City. So PJ Vogt will like ask a question like, why are there so many chicken bones in the street? And I'm like, I can't relate to that.
What are you talking about?
I have no idea what that means. And so like then just the first part of the podcast is him trying to convince you that like this is a bigger issue, which is always very funny to me. Try to sell the story he's about to tell is like, no, this matters.
Yeah. It's such a fun and addictive podcast, and you're absolutely right that I'll see an episode title that it's like, where have all the roaches gone? And it's like, PJ, what do you mean? What could you mean?
Yeah. I'm probably a good
Perhaps
question.
you moved.
Speaking of insects, Dan, and insects disappearing, you will notice visually that I'm in a new location.
Okay.
Please take a moment to do that.
All right. Yep. The roof is slantier. Are you in an attic?
It does have that sort of feel, or like an A-frame. This is the guest bedroom in my house. We've modeled it after
ooh la la.
a Motel 6, if you can see. I got severely burned on a recent Zoom call where my showrunner asked if my bedroom was in 1996.
Damn. You are a quick question for you.
Yeah.
On your work Zoom calls, is a bed behind you?
Yes. When I work here. Yes. When I work here, usually I work in the garage, right? Obviously that's my space. This is a room that I have to use as like a backup. And when it gets really, really cold in the winter and I need to be on camera, sometimes like a really rainy season, I will just come in here and work because it's just not worth it to be out there.
Yeah. I do what everyone does when you have a Zoom call in the beginning of the pandemic, and it's the first time we're all doing Zoom calls, and I could see into my coworkers' homes. I did what everyone does, and I, one by one, go through absolutely everyone's background to see what they're showing me, what they're presenting, and I was and am shocked at people who will have their bed in the background, or some people who are like sitting on their bed in like work clothes and everything, but just like, this is, we most of us live in New York. Certainly at the time we were all living in New York, and no one has a big home in Manhattan anywhere. So I understand space is limited, but just, I'm not supposed to see any of my coworkers' beds.
It's really uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable. I don't like it.
This is not so. First of all, it's madness when they don't make the bed. This is not my bed. This is a guest bedroom bed. So this is not where the magic happens.
Right.
And so I feel more comfortable. I feel more comfortable with it in the background. It just feels like another object in my house as opposed to like something very personal. But I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
When I see a coworker's, or like they're sitting there and they're like, it's clearly they're lounging a little bit more, like their chin is tucked in, and then you can see a headboard behind them, and you're like, get out of there. Don't. It's like seeing somebody's breast fall out. You're like, I'm not supposed to see this. This isn't for me.
Katie Stoll once posted a picture that was her boyfriend at the time, Cody Johnston, friends of the show, friends of ours. He was in swim trunks, which is like a thing I've seen before. I've been to pools and stuff, so it's not like an R-rated thing or anything. And he is in the shower with their dog Maggie, as he is like, that was how he was getting her clean, was getting in the shower with her. And Katie, I'm sure, was posting it as like, look at this cute thing. This is how we wash the dog here. And I almost reached out to her. I was like, take that photo down. I'm not supposed to see Cody in the shower. That is against the law.
I love that you were scandalized by it in a way that was like, somebody call the police.
Yeah. I know he's in swim trunks, and I know he's holding a dog, but there are enough other ingredients of Cody in the shower that I'm not supposed to see.
Yeah. No, I get it. I don't like looking at my coworkers' houses, but that's all I'm going to do the entire time is like see. Yeah. I want to see what I'm not supposed to see for like no other reason than like I look at roadkill when I drive by it. I'm like, I don't want to see it, but I want to make sure that it's not there. I want to look through everything that's in the background and be like, what? Clean up your fucking floor before you do a Zoom. I can see a bra on the floor.
I was so scrupulous in my early Zooms that I was always only going to have a plain white background behind me, just a solid white wall, because I didn't want... the last thing I ever wanted to do was invite 10 comedy writers into my home and an opportunity for roasts, because I know what we're like. We're terrible. And so I was going to give them no information. That was one of the reasons. And the other reason was I wanted the freedom to take little trips and take great advantage of working from home. Yeah. And I didn't want any like identifying marks, like if I was ever in a hotel room or staying at someone else's place or traveling, I would find another white wall because I didn't want anyone to know where I was in the world. Now I give much less of a shit about what's in my background in these Zoom calls. I'll normally have like the depth of my apartment, like with a window behind me, because that's where all the plants are, and I think the plants look nice. But that is also like the workspace where fiance works a lot of times, and I don't want her in the background. So when that happens, I just like wedge myself into a corner with a fire extinguisher hanging on the wall behind me, and just like, I don't give a shit anymore, guys.
You didn't realize how many more questions you were raising early on in the pandemic by only having a white wall behind you and wearing a 3-piece suit on every single Zoom call.
Yeah.
Suddenly it was, that's all anyone could think about.
Right. I didn't do a 3-piece suit for my work Zoom calls. That was just for like my friend happy hour Zooms. But like it's wild that you brought that up, because someone in our group chat was just posting a bunch of screenshots from the happy hour Zooms that we would do, and it is like such a cry for help. It's such a bad time. Like we're all at 3:00 in the morning drinking alone in our apartments, just playing weird games and like doing Pictionary and stuff. And it's like, it was definitely a fun time, and like we all needed it to get us through this horrible pandemic. But looking at those photos, it's like, oh, I don't think I want to see that. I don't think I need to be reminded of that. I also don't look at x-rays of my broken wrist.
Yeah, it's not fun to see me broken. Well, okay, so I mentioned killing insects. The reason that I'm in here today is because I have tented. I did. I said killing insects.
Yeah.
I'm tenting my garage.
Oh, what's in there?
Fumigating it. Termites.
Oh,
Termites
gross.
Are something that I don't know if this is true of everywhere. This might be my PJ vote thing, where I just assume every house has termites. But within Los Angeles, certainly, everywhere that I've ever looked at when we were looking for houses, everywhere I've ever lived has termite damage. And it's like a guarantee that while you're living there, if you're living there for like 7 years, you're going to get termites at some point. Every house you buy, you got to tent it immediately. Then you live in it for a little while, you're going to get termites while you live there, and you have to tent again. It's just like, just how it goes here. And so I've been in the situation where I was working in the garage, looked in a corner while I was sitting there, probably on a Zoom with you or on this call with you. And I was like, man, what is that pile of sawdust? Oh, that's just termite, like where the termites are shitting, I guess. And they're like, it's like coming out of the wall. And so I had a guy come, and he's like, I can't spot treat this. You're going to have to tent it. And I was like, okay, sounds easy enough. It's just a garage. But my garage shares a wall with a neighbor. It's like a wall comes to the garage, stops at it, and then, that becomes the wall. And that wall has these beautiful vines growing all over it for them in their backyard. So I had to like really negotiate, how am I going to tell my neighbors, I have to kill all of that. I'm going to put a tent over my garage. It's going to kill all your vines. I know that it took years and years for those to grow, but the garage is you understand the garage will fall down if we don't do this. Yeah. And so like trying to decide, how can I make this up to them? Like I'll offer to paint it, like offer to scrape it, do whatever they need done. And
just have them pivot to YouTube. That's what happened the last time Vine died. Soren, did you hear me?
I'm letting it just sit. I'm gonna let it marinate.
Okay. We'll edit in some laughs.
Nobody went to YouTube, did they? Nobody went to YouTube.
All the Viners went to YouTube. TikTok was not available when Vine died. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. I hope their careers survived that jump. So I'm in a situation now where like, I'm tenting it. It looks awful out there. I can tell that like it's killing even the stuff that's nearby it. And at some point that's going to come off, and I have like this whole new mess of problems where I got to fucking solve a wall that I don't even see every day because I feel terrible for my neighbors.
My old place where I lived, and my landlord, she was 197 years old, and she lived in the unit above me, and the place was falling apart for a million different reasons. And we had like the clearest textbook indication of termites you will ever see in your fucking life in our bathroom, of just like a hole in the ceiling and then a perfect circle of that sawdust debris or termite shit, whatever it is.
That
the kind
coarse
of thing that,
dust underneath it, yeah.
Yeah, like unmistakable signs of termite infestation. And as she did with all home repairs, she looked to see if she could fix it herself, and she couldn't because, again, 197 years old. And she wouldn't let me call any professional for this or any situation. She always had a very specific person for each thing. And it was like reliably someone who would tell her that the damage is not that bad and that it would cost too much to fix or replace anything. Whether it's like the washing machine broke or the ceiling was leaking or the ceiling was full of termites, she would get some fucking Kirkland brand repairman to come in and be like, I can plug up that current hole where the termites are throwing their droppings, and then you won't see that anymore.
Yeah.
And that would be, I wasn't allowed to get a second opinion from anyone. That would just be like, well, I talked to my expert and the expert says you're crazy. The ceiling is not leaking and there aren't termites. So I guess this is just your life now. And that's what happened. We just like caulked up that hole, and I was like, this is not my home. This is going to fall apart on someone else's watch.
It's going to collapse. It's going to collapse at some point. And how embarrassing is that? Like, how embarrassing is it that you didn't, like, so much of home ownership is you being like, I just have to avoid a wall falling down or something that's going to really embarrass me. Stuff can go really wrong underneath the house.
It was really wild knowing, being like so very aware, because it was just her. Her husband had passed away a while ago, and her plan for the house is truly to just die. I know it's a dark thought, but like so much was falling apart in that house, and you'll never get a better tenant than me, because I would say like, hey, I'm sorry to bother you, but the window fell out, and I need it because it's winter. And she'd be like, can you live without the window? And I would say, I guess I technically can. Like, you'll never get a better tenant for this particular situation. But I would think about like, this is your home. This is your investment. All the things that I'm fine living with, the next tenant is not going to be fine with. Like, you're not going to get me ever again. What could the plan be? And I'm pretty sure I landed on it. The plan is to just die, and then the house goes to the state, and it's someone else's problem. And at a certain level, I was like, I kind of respect that. You're not going to... What are you doing? What are you doing building up a nice home for someone else? This isn't going to be... You're not getting buried in the house.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can see it with parents, too, where parents will be like... They're trying to decide what they want to do with their house, and they're like, we've got like wood rot or whatever, and they're like, should we fix it, or should we just let it ride? Because how much longer could it conceivably go for? What?
I am looking forward to eventually reaching the age where something goes wrong with my body and doctors don't advise like changing my diet or rehab or anything to fix it, when they're just like, well, your knee could just suck now until the end. I'm like, thank you. That's right. That's what I wanted to hear. That's how I feel too.
You need the Kirkland doctor. You need the doctor who's going to tell you everything's going to be fine. I think it was my in-laws. One of them had gone in for an eye exam, and the doctor was like, well, you've got astigmatism, and you've got like clearly these other signs of like aging. There's like clouding in the eye and stuff, and like your vision's pretty poor. So ultimately, really good for your age. Yeah. you're just getting these report cards that are like, I mean, at this point, a C- is awesome. So you should be really happy with what you got there. I get that with teeth. Dentists, I hate going to the dentist because I'm always concerned that I have done something drastically wrong throughout the year. I've just fucked up. Yeah. And I go in and I'm just like ready for bad news. And a lot of times the doctor will be like, doctor, listen to me. The dentist will be like, okay, so I see like some cracking here. You got some really bad gum recession. Everything looks great. Yeah. Because I guess you see people who don't brush ever in their entire lives who then are like wander into a dentist by mistake.
Right.
And people just need like full crowns and stuff, or like bridges, whatever a bridge is. And so seeing some teeth where somebody still has all their original teeth, the doctor's like, what? The doctor.
Yeah.
The dentist is like, hey, somebody else get in here. Look at this. Look at this.
I don't get that. I get very clearly every dentist will say, boy, you really grind your teeth, huh? I'm like, yep, sure do.
I had to go to a periodontist to see if they wanted to do surgery on my gums to make more gums for me.
Yeah.
Which is like brutal. The process, I guess, is that you have all that wrinkly stuff on the roof of your mouth, that wrinkly skin. That's a bunch of extra. That's the gold of your mouth, apparently. They cut that off your roof of your mouth, and then they tape it to your gums, and then hopefully it takes and it turns into more gums.
I don't want that.
But it's the most painful process in the world.
Leave that Krang skin just where it is. That's where it's supposed to go. It's not supposed to see any more light than it gets currently.
My dad had that process done, and then he said he said it was super painful. It was very hard for him for like an entire week, and then after that, he just couldn't get over the fact that the roof of his mouth was so smooth. Because you've grown up your whole life with that piece of your brain down there, that piece of your brain that you just put your tongue against all the time, and it was different all of a sudden, and so like he couldn't get over it. He'd like talk about it constantly, dinner and stuff. He'd be like. It's so smooth.
Things just sliding down there.
Yeah, slipping and sliding. Don't like it. Apparently, the process has changed somewhat. When I talked to my periodontist, he was trying to assure me that if I did want to get it done, and this was not comforting, they go underneath the gum, they cut out a slice of like skin underneath the gum and just raise it up. Like a window, basically, like a sliding window. That's the only way I can describe it.
Jesus.
They separate some of it and just slide it up, and then it restores in place. And I was like, that sounds worse. That sounds like way worse.
Yeah.
I don't want any of this. Let's take it off a cadaver. Let's do that.
Yeah.
And then not even stitch it into mine. Let's just put it there. And if it takes, it takes.
And see if it takes.
Doesn't, yeah. If it doesn't,
Wasn't
I write it out. How much longer can I be here?
Speaking of how much longer, we somehow recorded a whole episode.
Oh, we're done. Daniel.
Unless you got something else.
No, I only wanted to say the reason that this happens to us occasionally. This is a little peek behind the curtain where Daniel and I will record and then we don't ever say any of the things we meant to say because we just want to talk to each other. And I got to say, it was great talking to you, man.
Great talking to you. I came in with 4 questions. I've never been more prepared for this podcast. And we didn't use them. So back to the trash they go.
We'll never use them. Goodbye.
Bye.
Hold on. Let me get to a couple outros real quick.
Okay.
If you want to find Daniel or I, you can find us on Blue Sky. Quick Question is still on X at QQ_Soren and Dan. There's a Instagram is QQ Soren and Daniel. You can watch little snippets of these episodes, and I mean watch them because you can see both Daniel and I. If you're also interested in seeing more bonus content of us and seeing our faces, you can do that at Patreon/Quick Question, or you can watch all of these podcasts in their entirety on YouTube at youtube.com at Quick Question Podcast. Sorry, at youtube.com/ let me start all over again. youtube.com/@QQ Podcast, and you can find our stuff there. You can also just go and search it. They've got a good search function over there on YouTube. They're doing it right. Thanks as always to our sound engineer, editor, and producer, Gabe Harder. In this case, our stand-in engineer and editor and producer, Jacob Weinstein. You're probably more likely to find him out there than you are to find Gabe Harder. And that's it. So, bye.
Bye.
I've got a quick question for you, alright? I wanna hear your thoughts, I wanna know what's on your mind. I've got a quick question for you, alright? The answer's not important, I'm just glad that we could talk tonight. So what's your favourite? How did you get? When will I be remembered? Was it ever? Where did all go? How do we know? Oh, forget it. If there's an answer, they're gonna find it. I think you'll have a great time here. I think you'll have a great time here.